Hi everyone, welcome to the Movie Section Show. My name is Fariva, and tonight we're about to watch Ahsoka episode 3. And to be honest, I'm super stoked to see the direction of this whole series because, after having watched the 2-episode premiere from last week, it just feels really promising. As I was saying last week when the episodes had dropped, it feels as if, we're really going back to kind of the basics of Star Wars. It definitely felt like, we're kind of getting all those feels again. And just to see the characters, it just felt like as if something felt far more complete watching the characters in those 2 episodes than I've ever had with anything that we've seen in, most of the Star Wars content that we've gotten the last few years. And so I think, again, the first episodes have really, been really promising. It really set up a really good, impression of, the whole direction of the show. As I said before, like if you see my reaction from last week, I just felt like as if the characters are all kind of well, set up. We got to meet Sabine, we got to meet Ahsoka, we got to see Hera here and there, as well as, Bain Skull and his, Padawan. This is a show that I'm really excited to kind of explore the whole storytelling as well as the characters. Like a lot of the characters are very interesting, especially the villains that we've seen so far. They all seem as if there's something really interesting regarding about them and their personalities. And not just that, right? The show is definitely starting off a little bit slow. At least the first 2 episodes start off a little slow, which is totally fine because, again, it's really setting up, the pacing as well as allowing us, anyone who's a bit more of a casual viewer to understand kind of the vibes of the show. But even with that, right, I'm excited to see kind of where the show goes moving forward. I feel like this is probably the most consistent Star Wars series I've seen in a while, as well as just overall Star Wars content. Of course, like since last week's 2 episodes that we've gotten, there's definitely been just one itsy bitsy criticism that a lot of people have drawn upon, and that is the fact that the first 2 episodes weren't exactly focused on Ahsoka. It does feel as if the first episodes were really far more concentrated on Sabine Wren. And of course, like anybody who's watched Rebels will know who the character is, as well as whereas anyone who isn't, as dedicated to following the Star Wars lore as some other people are, may not understand who the character is. So I think even with the criticism that the 2 episodes have been far more focused on Sabine rather than being Ahsoka, I think it was done for a purpose to allow, some of the more casual viewers to understand some of the characters, the big players who will be involved in the series, especially considering the fact that Ahsoka is now going to be very heavily invested with working with Sabine and making sure that, she can train to become a Jedi, or at least attempt to. And as I said before last week, that I think a big part of Ahsoka's story, or at least her arc, is going to be, whether or not she can be a dedicated master, someone who can really help their Padawan to find the Force, to really train them. And we'll see kind of how, her ability to really showcase that, her communication skills, her leadership, to really kind of teach someone like Sabine, who is just as, rebellious as, Ahsoka, and see kind of how she can adjust to all that. So again, I'm super excited to see the direction of this. I think there's a lot of potential in terms of the storytelling. The characters, I think they're all been really interesting so far, especially the villains like, Bill and Skull. And we'll see kind of how things go moving forward. Of course, we only get 1 episode tonight. But with that being the case, right, I think I've pinpointed everything I have to say. So without further ado, let's get right down into episode 3 of Ahsoka. She is training with
Gaiki, Kisei, Set, Kire, Kisei.
Thank you, Huyang.
Your skill with a weapon comes from your Mandalorian upbringing. Those skills alone will not be enough to defeat our enemy.
Oh,
Yeah,
we know how that works out.
You're training the body. That's something you'll have to discover.
Well, I discovered that according to Huyang, I'm the worst candidate to be a Jedi out of every Jedi he's ever known.
Oh, dang. The truth.
It doesn't matter.
I think it does.
Oh, we know those. Okay.
You're joking.
Ooh, that's not gonna be great. Oh. What a lot of fun that's gonna be. Oh.
I can't see. How am I supposed to fight?
You're supposed to use a Force, honey.
I want you to see with more than just your eyes. Are you sure?
Oh, stealth.
You'd be dead.
Oh, she's doing it. Oh. Wait, what is she doing? Oh, she's looking like a bumbling idiot. She's not using the force. Hu Yang is really judging hardcore. Oof. I guess that's progress, right? Time to fly. Ooh, I wonder what that means. Ah, Mon Mothma! There she is!
Senators.
Hera, you look well. Every level of the new Republic government. And they've all taken an oath of loyalty.
Long
Oh,
live the
Mothma
Empire
knows.
doesn't sound like the kind of loyalty we're looking for. Involving Thrawn.
Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Man, I
How is
can't
that
wait for
possible? He
Andor
disappeared
season 2,
years ago.
just seeing her here.
I have reason to believe.
Thrawn's return to acquire those resources that could be put to a more
What kind of
practical
gameplay
purpose,
is this, huh?
helping the
This is not a
people
mind trick.
of our
What?
fledgling republic.
Were you ever in the war, Senator?
It's the politicians.
No.
That makes sense. He's a politician. That makes
Sat back
so
and
much
waited to see who
sense.
Came out on top.
Oh. I love Hera right
General
now.
Syndulla, I'm sure we are all...
Situation could expedite my training a bit.
I
I'm
mean,
afraid it
that's
doesn't work
not...
like that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
I
say.
know, it
doesn't work like that.
I can't use the Force.
Also, she's a late bloomer if
I don't-
for her to be training
Feel it.
in the Order of the Jedi.
Like you do.
Like, come on.
Force starts small.
I would love to see Sabine be able to move that cup.
Ahsoka.
What you said didn't help.
I only spoke the truth. The Jedi Order would not have accepted her. She is not an acceptable candidate.
Oh,
By their standards.
harsh words.
Standards which were proven over a long line of non-traditional Jedi. That way, she fits right in.
Non-traditional. I love that. I'm gonna assume by the end of the episode she's gonna be able to manifest the Force, right? I'm gonna assume that's what's gonna end up being the case. By the end of this episode, she's gonna manifest the Force. She's gonna manifest the Force by the end of this episode. There's just no denying it. I feel like that's just a setup for this episode. Or maybe she might be able to get in like the next minute. Who knows?
Something much larger.
A Star Destroyer?
Negative. Whatever it is has a signature which is unknown to me.
Signature? What is that supposed to mean? Oh, it's Sinhati, my dudes. She sounds like she seems like a really interesting character, but also pretty, you know, big badass.
2 and 3, close range and engage.
She's like really unbothered. This is why she's such an interesting villain, even though she is a villain. Shit.
Where you're both acting, there won't be a later.
Damn. Does she gotta use the Force? Nice.
Good work.
If I had to guess, I would say it is some sort of hyperspace ring.
I'd like to confirm that.
I'm surprised you let them get this far. Stay clear. I shall deal with them. Prepare turbo lasers.
She was very direct with that comment. Oh, what a great way to say I'm very disappointed in you.
Not yet. See if you can get a little closer.
Are you?
Closer, please.
Is he not gonna get it now? Come on. Dude.
Scan complete.
Shit. What the frick just happened?
Destroyed.
Oh, dang, that's some really bad damage. Oh my god. No, Yang,
Full
no.
diagnostic. Prioritize Sabine. We can't help Wu Yang if we're both dead. Now get on it.
Holy shit. That is not good.
You almost got them.
I have eyes on them. We'll take it from here.
Not much. Our backup kicked in, but we're dead in space. No hyperdrive, no cannons. We got
Shit.
incoming.
No hyperdrive? Oh my god.
Out there. Out where?
We have them.
Nonchalant, man. She's so nonchalant. What? Oh my god, what is going on? Whoa, hold up. What is going on? I didn't know that there's actually spacesuits that they use. Oh man, this is interesting. I never would have imagined that we're gonna see spacesuits in Star Wars. Oh my god. This is taking the Force to a whole new level. Oh shit! She'll be fine.
Did you fix the ship yet?
Oh shit, she's orbiting in space. That's not good.
I got it! Great. Okay.
Oh, flying dolphins! Or flying whales, sorry. Looks like flying whales. Looks like flying whales who happen to have tentacles. Well, that makes sense now. Time to fly. These are literally flying whales with tentacles in the back as tails. Oh, snap. Oh my god, that score! That shot out like, whoa! Hu Yang is back!
Oh,
Yay!
took my battery back up a while to cycle, I suppose. What did I miss?
Everything. Okay, so well, good news is that they evaded them. But the question is, for how long?
Any sign of them? Are you alright?
Haven't seen those creatures since the day Ezra disappeared.
Yeah,
Anything
it took me a while to
interesting?
remember those creatures, and I remember
Indeed.
them too.
The good news is the enemy vessel is not built on this scale before. A craft with these power levels and configuration would be capable of a hyperspace jump of astonishing speed and distance.
Yang, could a ring like that make a jump to a neighboring galaxy?
Theoretically, if one knew the coordinates and navigation, yes, I believe it could. The migration paths of star whales named Purgle.
Like the ones we just saw.
Star
Really?
whales.
When?
Just now? So they are literally... Okay, Star Whales. I mean, that's a really easy name to remember. I feel like I remember these too. From season 1. Of Rebels, of course.
I have taken refuge in the
Ooh, does
forest.
that mean we're gonna get that fight between
them
Ahsoka
down.
and Balon
Please stop.
next episode? Ooh, man, Balon's such an interesting character. Oh my god. That was Ahsoka episode 3 right there. And yeah, I mean, this was a pretty decent episode. I mean, it didn't have a lot of things going on, of course. It wasn't as, fast paced as we had with the first episode. But it definitely was a really good setup for what we're about to see, right? So let's get right down into it. in terms of what we know so far, of course, like we're seeing Sabine getting trained by Ahsoka to become, a possible Jedi, although of course it is a bit of a really tough journey because of the fact that, she isn't the typical candidate you would, recruit to become, part of the Jedi Order, or in this case, just become a Jedi. But even with that, we've seen sort of where this whole dynamic has been going. We're seeing how Ahsoka and Sabine are really, communicating with one another, seeing how their dynamic is really shifting. It seems as if they are really kind of reconciling a little bit, knowing that, what happened in the past and, what they really hinted at in the first 2 episodes. So we'll see, we'll continue to see how this, dynamic keeps on going. Because again, it feels like as if this is going to be a really big part of Ahsoka's arc. Why, hence why this is, called Ahsoka. Although, and, I know a lot of people are saying this is basically like Rebels season 5. So we'll see where it all goes, of course. Definitely love the dynamic here, especially in the part at the end, the latter 5-7 minutes of the episode, where we do see the fact that, Ahsoka and, Sabine, they're all being attacked by, the Imperialists, by Shin-Hati, as well as Morgan Elsbeth. So, and just to see how they're working together and trying to kind of, ease that dynamic and trying to, again, fix sort of the relationship from before, and seeing how they're actually working together and not having a lot of this, tension between them. It's going to be interesting, again, how that's going to continue off moving forward, because, again, I think that that's going to be really key into seeing how, again, Ahsoka, not just, Sabine, really trying to figure out how to, manifest the Force in some capacity, but also with Ahsoka and how she's going to grow as a character. So we'll continue to see how that all goes. I think, again, just by the end of the episode, we can see how there's a far more better mutuality between Sabine and Ahsoka. So that's something that I cannot wait to see going forward. Of course, the one part I want to mention a little bit about, of course, is Hera's meeting with the counselor. The Republic Council. Again, I feel like the one guy who, was really shutting down Hera's proposal to go and help Ahsoka and Sabine in the Darth system or something like that. The fact that, he was challenging Hera's proposition, her concerns about, Thrawn coming back, and really just shutting it all down. I'm really suspicious of why he's really taking that stance, knowing that, anybody who's a imperialist, give the benefit of the doubt for the fact that, considering the fact that they just had this whole situation at Coralie, and the fact that they're still not really considering the fact that there could still be a lot of imperial loyalists out there, that is concerning. But it also makes me very suspicious. But also it could be in a sense that because they're politicians, they don't have that experience that a lot of people who have worked on the field, right? So someone who is a bit more militaristic, like Hera, who's been more involved in combat. I'm gonna assume that's probably the reason why they're acting like that, why they're really making decisions like, as if they're being very naive, they're really being gullible, not really considering the fact that, there is a threat out there, regardless of how they're trying to kind of not get into kind of the past, when they're still, like, you can get that sense of that. And I feel like that a lot of it could just be the fact that they are politicians and they don't have that experience and don't really understand the truth of how the world works. So that's maybe what I'm getting the hang of. But also there is a bit of this sus factor with that one character who isn't, addressing the fact that, there is still a threat out there. The fact that, something as Thrawn is still being alive could be a big concern. So we'll keep an eye on the council as well and see how things go. Again, I think it could just be because they're politicians and they don't know crap and they don't understand what it's like to be in the real world. That, that could be the whole idea of it, that, there are somebody who have a lot of power, who have a lot of, who are elites, who have, who don't really have to go into the field and, really be involved in the actual field part itself, that, maybe they're just that inexperienced with what's actually the truth. But we'll see how it all goes. Again, I think it's nice to see Mon Mothma again. To see her, I think they called her the Chancellor, right? So That's great. I mean, I cannot wait to see more of her. I mean, I hope I get to see more of her because, again, I think she's been a really big part of Andor. She was a very interesting character, of course. To see a bit of her backstory in Andor season 1 was one thing. I cannot wait to see how they're going to progress her character moving forward into season 2 because, of course, she is someone who is very, deep into the whole Rebel Alliance. I mean, we remember from back in Andor that, even with the whole situation with the Imperial and the Galactic Empire and the fact that there were people watching her, that she was going to go to every extent to really just, help the Rebel forces in every way possible. So we'll see how that all goes again. I don't know if this is the one and only time we've seen Mon Mothma. Maybe that is it. But we'll see how it all goes, right? And of course, Hera, knowing that she can't really do much because those are her orders and they didn't improve it. That is definitely, a huge setback, but we'll see how it all goes with that, of course. I think the one thing I think that is worth mentioning is how they ended off this episode. The fact that we get to see Baylan Skoll, because he wasn't very, he doesn't appear a lot in this episode aside from the last minute or so of the ending. And to see that, he's asking them for all to be prepared. Of course, they're going to try and search for Ahsoka and Sabine in the forest right there. I feel like we're getting the sense, for me, I'm getting the sense that we're probably going to get that, anticipated duel between Ahsoka and Baylan. I feel like it's inevitable. I feel like given how they ended this episode, I feel like that's just the route they're taking right now. So I think next episode we're going to have, I think that's what it's really preparing for. And I think that that's where we're going to start really seeing more of Ahsoka, of course, because if we remember from the trailers, there was that really, that tension between Baylan and Ahsoka and how they were really kind of talking about Anakin, right? And I think we've all been, anticipating that Anakin could show up in some form. I think I've, argued that if there's any way that Anakin is going to be showing up in the show, it's going to be in two ways. One, as a flashback scene, because again, we all know how deep Ahsoka's relationship is with Anakin. Anakin was, training Ahsoka during the Clone Wars time, so that's maybe one idea that I would assume is where we're gonna see Anakin show up. Or the other way would be we see his Force Ghost, right? We've seen his Force Ghost before back in Return of the Jedi, but we haven't seen him since, at least not in my acknowledgement that I've seen him before or after. So we'll see how it all goes. I think those are the only two ways that we can really see Anakin, because Anakin is dead. So again, there's a lot of ways that the show can go. I think right now is in a really good spot, really just setting up a lot of the characters, the relationship, the storytelling. In terms of this episode alone, of course, I mean, it's not my favorite episode, of course, again, because there wasn't really a lot going on, because, again, it is just really kind of setting up a lot of things. This is only episode 3 of 8, so I feel like hopefully by the next episode, we'll start to really pick up a lot of the story and start to really get into the big conflict of it, getting to, kind of the rising action of everything else. And not just that, right? But even with that being the case, right, I think with this episode, it still does a really good job of setting up a lot of things. The last 15 minutes or so was really, fun to watch because of that whole attack from Shin Han-Ti as against Ahsoka and Sabine. Seeing just, again, Ahsoka just come out of the ship and just, using her force, fighting against the TIE fighters in outer space. I mean, I know a lot of people are probably going to compare this to Princess Leia and what was it, The Last Jedi, where, her ship got destroyed and, she was floating in space, and then she uses the force to fly to a nearby ship so that way she can, at least save herself. I mean, I feel like there's gonna be a lot of comparison to that, but honestly, I feel like this is a much better display of how to use the force in space, of course. I feel like that one was definitely a really big miss because it just looked really bizarre and awkward, let alone the fact that CJ was really off in that scene. This one actually looked like it was far more organic, it was far more natural in the whole setup. You can tell that there was a lot more creativity in that whole sequence, trying to show kind of Ahsoka using her powers and trying to fight in space, knowing that they're in really deep trouble and the ship is really inert. It's not really moving. It's not working right now, and Sabine needs to really fix it. And I think the fact that Ahsoka was able to give them enough time for Sabine to really fix the ship and doing some way that where she is fighting against tigers all by herself, with her two sabers and doing so in a way where she is, again, being very nonchalant. She's not too worried. She's very calm. It's like, wow. I mean, I love Ahsoka when she is in action. I think they once again display kind of the power of who Ahsoka is, the ability to really showcase her skill sets. It's incredible. I feel like if there's one thing for sure the show has done a really good job at, is really displaying the first rate of who Ahsoka is when it comes to her as like this really informed Jedi. So again, I feel like that's definitely one thing that we keep seeing as a trend through and through with, you know, so far with Ahsoka, that, you know, even if this actual episode and the actual, you know, progression of where this arc is going maybe in a really slow direction, like in this case there wasn't really a lot to go by. There wasn't anything that, you know, they added new details of or really kind of stepped up a lot of what's going on or gave us any twists or turns or anything like of that sort. It still gives us some really good action sequences. It really gives us some, you know, really in-depth, you know, situations that's going on with the characters, the dynamics, the relationships. In this case, of course, seeing Ahsoka and Sabine really trying to, you know, trying to get this mutuality together and, you know, trying to, you know, with Ahsoka, at least in her case, trying to get Sabine to really understand how to wield, or at least trying to find herself, as she says in this episode, trying to find herself and be comfortable with who she is while doing so in a way that she is trying to train as a Jedi. But at the same time, again, just seeing a lot of the action sequences, it has been pretty great. I think, again, there was a really good action sequence right there, so which, again, really made up for a lot of the pacing of this episode for sure. Again, I'm not too bothered by the fact that, you know, it is going a little bit slow. I think this episode was definitely a much slower episode. Like, if I were to give like a rating of something, I'll probably give it like a 7, maybe a 6.5, 7, just because, again, there wasn't really a lot going on. This is, I believe, one of the shorter episodes we've gone so far. The first one was like about 54 minutes. The second one was shorter. I think it was like roughly 40, but if you cut off the intro, the recap, and the credits, I think it really went down to 35. I think this one, I think the episode was maybe cutting at 30. So yeah, I feel like, again, because of the fact that this episode is you know, shorter, that there wasn't really a lot to kind of dig deep into. But even that being the case, right, it doesn't take away the fact I think this show has been solid so far. It's not, I think one of the things I like about it is it's very consistent. I think that at least in this case, it's been consistent with how we've, you know, started the series from the beginning. And I think that's worth a really huge thing to really compliment, because I feel like that's a lot of issues I've had with some of the other Disney Plus, you know, Star Wars series we've had, because a lot of times the pacing has been super off. Like with Mandalorian season 3, like this pacing was really off. The story was very inconsistent. It felt as if, you know, the story kind of felt really lost. Obi-Wan, you know, that was a show that really ran way too long. It was supposed to, or at least should have. I feel like you could have, you know, really cut back a lot of the episodes and could have actually been a solid Obi-Wan series. Heck, I feel like it could have just been a movie, because it really got repetitive. Andor, of course, is the one that, you know, has kind of been the, you know, kind of been the black sheep, but in a good way, of course, because it's been one that has been very consistent with its whole pacing, its whole tone, the storytelling, really kind of getting to the depths of really going deep into the character development. And I feel like this is something that I've seen so far with this show, of course, just taking a bit of a step forward and trying to, you know, dig deep into the characters, taking time to really get the story told, allowing us to really understand not just the protagonist, but also the antagonist. I feel like, again, this is a show where I feel like I'm actually really interested to know more about, you know, the Siths, the Inquisitors in this series, whether it be Balon Skull or Sin Hati, or heck, even Morgan Elsbeth. So there's a lot of ways that the show has really kind of piqued my interest. Of course, again, the big question is going to be, will they find Thrawn? We know in the trailers that we do see Thrawn, but will they find him, of course, is going to be the big question. And of course, the bigger question is going to be, will they find Ezra Bridger, right? So, again, I feel like with this episode, it's pretty decent. It's not my favorite. I think, again, a lot of it's just really kind of the setup, the buildup of really kind of setting up kind of everything that's going around, getting the setting in place, knowing that, again, like, you know, the big part, the main goal, again, of course, is going to be the story regarding Thrawn and Ezra Bridgers, whether or not they'll be able to find them, one or the other, and whether or not Thrawn is going to be the big threat that, they are anticipating him to be. I feel like, again, we kind of know what's going on, of course, beyond that, because we're going to have that Mandalorian movie, so there's going to be a lot of questions of whether or not, what this would mean for Thrawn, but yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that the show can go, and I think right now it's a really good direction. Hopefully by the next episode things will pick up. Again, I feel like we're gonna get a Balon versus Ahsoka fight, so that's something that I'm gonna be looking forward to seeing. So yeah, I think that's all I really have to say about this episode. I think that I really pinpointed everything I needed to say. I think, again, it's a really decent episode, not my favorite, but hopefully things will really pick up from there. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Ahsoka episode 3. Let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think about the episode overall? Do you agree that it's a bit of a slower start than we usually get from some of the other episodes we've gotten so far? Do you think it's a really good addition? What do you think about the fact that we got this really awesome sequence with Ahsoka and Sabine fighting off against Hati, seeing that sequence with Ahsoka and fighting in space using her force for that brief moment? Of course, again, do you think we're going to get that Balon versus Ahsoka, fight, that duel next episode, as well as if you have any other theories, as well as speculations going into, Ahsoka, knowing that we do have now, 5 more episodes? Let me know in the comments down below, and make sure to like and subscribe.